filmed this video earlier today with my air conditioning on, but the audio was terrible. So here I am redoing it, but that's just as well. I'm Linda. This is Linda's World. And if you know absolutely nothing about me and you've never watched a Linda's World video before, I'd like to tell you a couple of things, a couple of stats, if you will, before I get into the story time, because the story time is rather personal and I think you need this information to grasp the concept. So, my name is Linda Erin McManus. I am 43 years old. My birthday is April 20th, and I love that. I am a high school English teacher. I've been teaching at the high school that I went to here in Brooklyn, New York for the last 20 years. I'm not very happy with my job. I'm not at all happy with my neighborhood. And 12 years from now, I'm retiring to Southern California, and that's just great. I'm divorced, very happily. I have no children. That's by choice. I've raised 2 dogs, my little baby Sophia, who lived to be 13, and my little baby Chloe, who's currently 5 and very much alive. My best friend lives 8 footsteps away from me down the hall in this building, and she's the one who has the cats, Emma, who has passed, and Richard, who's very much alive and asleep on the bed right now. This is my life. It's important that you know that before we go forth on this journey of my mental health. So the title kind of gives it away. This is a story time about how I discovered I was bipolar and how I almost sort of missed it. You know, before I get into the story, I would like to give you a statistic that I know that's rather important. As a mental health advocate, I feel it is my duty to share that bipolar patients, and this is with medical intervention, bipolar patients spend an average of 10 to 15 years being misdiagnosed by medical professionals before they get the proper diagnosis and therefore the proper treatment for their disorder. So there's that. I was one of those people. So our story actually begins in 1980. I know many of my viewers probably were not alive in 1980, but nevertheless, I was 3 that year, and I remember going out into the living room at some point, a lot of nights, like during the evening, this happens often, to go sit with my mother, who was on the love seat that we had near the stereo, and I would go up to her and I would tell her this complaint, you know, because when you're 3 and something hurts, you get mommy, you know. And I would say, I'm having an emotion and I don't know what it is. That's the exact sentence. That's the exact vocabulary I used. And my mother, being my mother, she wanted to figure out, like, what to do about it. You know, are you hungry? Are you bored? Do you need sleep? Like, what do you need? You know, let's alleviate your troubles, you know. And so we tried that, and it worked sometimes, and it didn't work all the times. And I suffered from a horrific, almost constant daily panic attack and horrific insomnia. And it was just in no way, shape, or form fun to live in my head when I was a child. It's funny, a long time ago, I saw this commercial with Jessica Simpson. I think it was for like shampoo because there was a lot of hair. And she and like these little girls were like wandering around in a meadow. And the voiceover said something to the effect of, do you remember those carefree days of just being a little girl with no worries? And I got angry and I had to like try not to throw something at my television. And I was like, no, I don't remember that at all. Okay? And how dare you assume that everybody's life was walking around in the wildflowers, Jessica Simpson. And so here we are. Now, I'd like to fast forward a lot, about 25 years or so into the future, to tell you the story of how the bipolar diagnosis came to be and what was done about it and what kind of trouble I got into during the journey to finding it. Once upon a time in 2004, I was 27 and I was living alone with my little dog Sophia in my first apartment that I love to this day and would move back to in a heartbeat if the guy who lives there now would go away. I had been teaching for 4 years and I was single but like okay with it, you know, like I saw people, I didn't see people, like whatever. And I had like 1 or 2 friends, but like making friends has always been like a really difficult for me, so like I was lucky to have the crew that I had, you know. And they were mostly work people, except for my best friend. I mean, she was a work person too, but she's my actual best friend. So we would all go out. And so this is when I guess the troubles really started, because one thing I didn't know about being bipolar is the fact that often it doesn't mix with drinking alcoholic beverages. there's a lot of people who, when they're drunk, act out, you know, silly. Like there's people who get drunk and get very flirtatious. There are people who get drunk and get very angry. There's people who buy everyone a shot and then pass out. There are people who just pass out. There are people who get sick. There are people who cry to the bartender and say, I don't know, boss, when did it all go wrong? There's all different kinds of people who drink, you know. And it turns out that I was one of the angry ones. But the thing is that it was an interesting mix of anger at others and anger at myself. And it didn't always end well for me, like physically. And it put a damper on a lot of my relationships. And it was just really the wrong thing to do. I did not know that I was dealing with something different. I just thought I was just being, just acting out when drinking. I didn't realize that it was sort of counterintuitive to my disorder because I did not know I had one yet. And that is the next part of the story. The previous summer, actually, which was 2003, was when the conversation about getting help began. We had a blackout. Actually, it's funny, I think that tomorrow's the 13th, is the anniversary of the big blackout that happened in New York City. We hadn't had one since 1977 when I was a baby. And so my best friends and I walked from Hunter College, which was on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We'd been there visiting, and all the way back to her house in Park Slope. So basically like a 4.5-hour walk. And we were sitting on the rooftop deck of her home that she shared with her boyfriend at the time. And they were having, you know, the classic blackout thing, free water and beer and hot dogs and stuff, you know, from the stores because of the power outage. And so we're all sitting up there having like a deck party and enjoying ourselves. And I was going to go home to Sophia the next day because trains weren't running and whatever. And when we were talking about the concept, and we made two major decisions that night. One was what master's degree we were both going to get. And the other one was the fact that I need to get myself into a psychopharmacologist so that I could get the proper medication given to me for my, at least for my depression and anxiety. And so finally I did. So the psychopharmacologist there was a main doctor and there was a nurse practitioner, and I always preferred the nurse practitioner. She was friendly, he was not. And she understood stuff and he didn't. And so I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was given two medications. I was given Zoloft and Xanax. Now, ladies and gentlemen who are ignorant of pharmaceuticals and like psychopharmaceuticals, basically Xanax is a short-acting medication. If you take enough of it, you get high, okay? Xanax is a benzodiazepine, an anti-anxiety medication that you're supposed to take if you have like a panic attack. It's short-acting. Like you take it at 12, you feel better 12:30, right? And Zoloft is a long-standing medication. It's like taking Lipitor for your cholesterol. You know what I mean? It doesn't get you high. It takes about a week to kick in, and then slowly but surely relieves the cobwebs from your brain so that you can get up out of the bed, you know, if you've been depressed, and go about your merry way and do things to get yourself better naturally. And you may get off of it, you may stay on it, whatever, okay? I stayed on it. That was my problem. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the opposite of depression? Mania. Okay, so there I was taking my antidepressant, and I took it, and I knew that I felt worse, and I knew that other people around me were treating me worse because I knew I was behaving worse in front of them. I knew that I was talking really, really fast. I always talk fast, but I mean, psychologically speaking, I always talk fast, I think, subconsciously, because I've been silenced a lot in my life. And like the little man in my brain tells me to say it really loud and really fast, so at least it got out and they can't get you, you know. But this was abnormally fast for me, and I was interrupting people, and I was causing scenes, and I was just being a jerk, you know. And so, and I knew I didn't feel right inside. I felt like 1,000 bumblebees were stabbing me in the blood, you know. And so it was quite awful, but I was taking my medication. So I'm like, but I don't understand. How am I going to feel worse if I'm doing what the doctor said? You know what I mean? And people accused me of not taking my medication. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I am. Why is this bad? It didn't occur to me that it was the wrong medication. Okay. So finally, spring of 2005 happened. And this was a monumental time for me negatively. A couple of things happened that spring. One, my landlords told me that they were selling their home and moving to Florida, and that I had to vacate the basement apartment I was living in. I'd moved. That was not cool. My job, because of my own behaviors, because of my being an irritant, and because of my my lack of being neither here nor there, my just general sense of being crazy, had led me to some I guess, differences of opinion with my boss, not my boss I have now, but it was a different woman who's retired since, about how I ought to conduct myself and what my classes are like and what behavior management needs to go on and whatever. And so there's this old expression in New York that says you're always, in New York City, you're always looking for either a boyfriend, a house, or a job. And it's funny because currently I was lacking all three. And there was an altercation that occurred in my job that wasn't fun, and my best friend and I were out to dinner eating lobster, and she told me that she'd confided in someone that she didn't quite know what to do with me anymore, that it was embarrassing, that she'd often lied about going out because the people involved had said, please don't bring Linda. So she didn't, and she just told me she was home, and it was just an absolute wreck. And I also had quit sleeping by 2005. I remember night after night lying in my bed in the basement apartment with Sophia right there, just watching this, for some reason that movie 13 was always on. The one with Evan Rachel Wood where she meets that girl who introduces her to drugs, boys, and self-harm, and a really scary movie with Margot Kidder once. But I was just up watching this stuff until like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd get maybe 20 minutes of sleep, and then I was due at work, and so I had to get up and get dressed and go. And so clearly I wasn't performing up to task in my life, my personal or professional life. It was absolutely horrendous. And so then, well, we'd be here for life if I told you what happened between my best friend and me in 2005 summer vacation. We go to Montenegro almost every year. We quit it now, but for many years in the 2000s, we went to Montenegro. If you don't know where that is, it's across from Italy. It's part of the former Yugoslavia. There's a Serbian side and there's a Muslim side. And so that's, we go on the Serbian side and we enjoy ourselves immensely. It's a kick-ass beach and it's beautiful. I get like a black tan, and like, it's just, the water is scary blue. It looks like a friggin' commercial. I mean, it's just great. So we went, and I, in my wrongfully medicated state, made a horrendous social gaffe with these gentlemen that we were with, where it really screwed up a couple of things for her that she was hoping to set up, and just, I mean, I'd be here for life if I told you the story of that. That's its own separate story time. And when we came back from vacation, we saw one another a few times and then didn't speak for a year because she didn't know what to do about me. She couldn't take it anymore. Went back to the psychopharmacologist. And I was like, Christina, I'm like, please help, because this situation is untenable. And I know I feel worse. People are treating me worse. I know the situation is worse. I don't think that I'm just depressed. I might be bipolar, I said to her, because I feel manic. It brings me back to when I was 3, and I'd walk on to the love seat with my mother and say, I'm having emotion and I don't know what it is. I remember vividly, I told her about what I was doing wrong, and I said, I'm talking too fast, and I said, I'm probably talking too fast now. And I'd never forget Christina leaning back in her chair saying, you are. And I knew I was. So I knew that that wasn't the proper medication for me, because it wasn't the proper diagnosis. Well, 2 medications later, I found lithium. Depakote was the first one. It didn't quite cut the mustard. But this all took place about 15 years ago. And I sit here before you in 2020, a middle-aged woman, like just doing a thing, living life, just being a person. And am I entirely sane? Absolutely not. But I am better than I was, and I'm probably as good as I can ever hope to be. I am, at present, just going through the motions. There's some life stuff that is absolutely deplorable, mostly in my job, that is killing me. And that's a situation that's untenable as well. And that's a separate story time too. But the thing is that I know it's not happening chemically to me. I know that a lot of my negative feelings right now are situational, but I consider every single day that I wake up alive and not in a jail cell or in a straitjacket to be a good day, because it's a miracle. That's why my birthday is so precious to me, because every April 20th when I wake up, and like I said, nobody killed me. I'm not on a bridge. I'm not in a straitjacket, and I'm not in prison. It's fantastic. And I thank the universe every single day for that. People who know me know that I don't believe in God, but I do believe in the universe unfolding as it should. And I am so happy that the universe kept me out of chains You know what I mean? So that I could prove myself that I could be a better person. And that it wasn't me doing that. It was bipolar me. You know what I mean? That it wasn't, I didn't elect to be that kind of a person for the first 28 years of my life. It was elected for me by chemicals and science. And I'm not going to stand here and say that I'm entirely sane, but you know what? I do what I can do one day at a time. You know, I shared this story time with you specifically. There was something else I wanted to say, but I was like, no, I want to tell this one because, like I said, bipolar people struggle so much. And it's funny because now the tide has turned and people are over-diagnosing people who are bipolar. Like people who aren't bipolar are being told they're bipolar. It's like the disease du jour. You know, it's like you're bipolar or you have PTSD. Either every single human being has had trauma or they don't know what to do. Do you know what I mean? And I just really feel kind of bad for people who are wrongly diagnosed either way. And it's really, really just counterproductive to getting better. If you're a person who is bipolar and you are diagnosed with anything that will give you an antidepressant, it's only going to make matters worse. And if you're a person who isn't bipolar, then you're not going to be getting the help you need for the disorder that you may actually have. And it's upsetting me. There's so much about the mental health community that upsets me. Like, we've gone so far, but we've not come as far as I'd like us to have. You know, we're not throwing people in rubber rooms anymore and letting them bang the devil out of themselves, but we are certainly not where we need to be. And there's a stigma around mental health that doesn't exist around physical health at all. Like, I think about like going to calling the pharmacy and they say, and what prescription is that for? And I say lithium. And I don't feel this, but I imagine other people might feel ashamed to say lithium. And I think to myself, why? Would you be ashamed if you said insulin? Would you be ashamed if you were going to chemotherapy? You know, physical illnesses and mental illnesses are illnesses, and they make doctors, and doctors make treatment, and you go get it, and you live. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at things. Like, I would certainly sit down in the chemo chair if I had breast cancer, so why would I not accept the gifts of lithium that keeps me as sane and rational as I humanly possibly can, so that I can continue to do the things I do best: go to the beach, teach The Great Gatsby, walk my dog, and sit down and watch reruns of Three's Company at night. You know, why would I not want something that would keep that for me? Why would I not want to harness the good in my life, excommunicate the bad, if it meant taking medication? Why would I not want that? You know what I mean? And why would I be ashamed of something? I guess I just never feel any personal shame there, because it's an illness like anything else. And that's why I feel no personal shame having shared this story with you guys. I'd like to end this story time by saying that if you are in a situation where you feel as though you're getting no help at all, or the wrong help for something that is going on with you mentally or physically, if you're getting medical treatment for a disorder that's in your body or your brain, and you feel like they're not helping you, or you feel like they're doing, I guess, the opposite of what you need, then you have every right to speak up and figure it out. You have every right to second guess that and go get a second opinion, and go back to the first opinion if you want to, and be like, hey man, I don't think that this course of treatment is working for me. I don't feel good. You know, it's your body and it's your mind, and you have one life. You know, I've lived 43 years on this planet. At best, I've got like 40 left. And I don't intend to spend those 40 in shame or in a cell because I didn't speak up for my mental health rights. That's not going to happen. I'm going to be at Rosie's Dog Beach in Long Beach, California, walking a whole bunch of little cavaliers. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm just not going to fret about it, because I spent the first 28 years of my life fretting about it. Those days are over. And if you feel as though what happened to me when I was 28 is happening to you, you have every right to go and get it together, wherever that is, whatever that means for you. And please take advantage of organizations that can help you if you lack the freedom or the dollars to go and take care of it. They're out there, and I will link them in the description, because That's how passionately I feel that no one ever had to experience what I experienced at like 4 in the morning in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, flinging my lighter at somebody because he had the audacity to call me crazy, and then going home and crying because I knew he was right. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. And that's just the good stories. That's just the comical one. So I'm going to leave it at that and quit while I'm ahead. And I'm going to say I will see you guys on Self-Care Sundays. Thank you so much for hearing my story. If you are not yet a member of Linda's World, well, I suggest you hit the subscribe button. And you're going to hear more stuff like this and also happier tales. So, you know, there's that. And I'll see you on Sunday.